The message didn't arrive via a standard diplomatic channel. It was a broadcast, a singular cold command of such technological superiority that it bypassed Earth's defensive matrices and manifested directly on Captain Kaelen Thorne's desk terminal. It was a Tuesday morning, a day Kaelen had scheduled for the soul-crushing bureaucracy of deep space fuel audits. Instead, the screen glowed with the sigil of the Grand Terran Ascendancy, G.T.A., a stylized angular crest that spoke of ancient dominion and absolute power. The text was rendered perfectly in English, then in a cascade of 17 other major human languages, a testament to the sender's thoroughness. The sender, the Galactic Terran Ascendancy, G.T.A., the colossal power that reigned over 951 star systems. The message was framed as an invitation, a gesture of goodwill to induct humanity into the galactic community via a ceremony of hierarchical understanding on their capital. Axiom Prime. Kaelen, a man whose career had been forged in the crucible of long-haul freighter defense and Cold War-era tactical strategy, read the message 3 times. The G.T.A. had been an enigma for the 2 decades since their first distant probe contact. Their history was public record. 6 centuries of unbroken peace enforced by an undefeated, galaxy-spanning military. They didn't conquer or enslave. They merely established a natural continuum of order. Species were sorted by strength, innovation, and inherent hierarchical fitness. The strong led, the weak were governed. Simple, absolute, and to their minds morally necessary. "Captain," a voice interrupted his grim study. Lieutenant Kai Min-jun stood in the doorway, a data slate held loosely in his hand. Kai was Kaelen's executive officer, and the only person Kaelen trusted to understand the gravity of the situation without explicit warning. "You got the broadcast too, Lieutenant," Kaelen stated, leaning back in his chair, the leather creaking under his weight. "It's not an invitation, sir. It's an ultimatum wrapped in velvet. The ceremony of understanding is where they shatter our will. They show us their might, and we nod, acknowledge our inferior position in the continuum, and integrate." Kai's face was usually etched with a calm, intellectual intensity, but now a faint line of anxiety creased his brow. "Precisely. We are a young, fragmented species. We haven't even achieved full planetary unity. By their metrics, we're barely a Tier 5 civilization. We follow, or we become a problem they are obligated to remove." Kaelen rubbed the bridge of his nose. The silence in the high-ceilinged office was oppressive, a contrast to the cosmic stakes they were discussing. The diplomatic corps is already arguing. Half want to send a full flagship, a deterrent. The other half want to send a skeleton crew, a sign of humility, Kai reported. A deterrent is an insult to a power that hasn't lost in 6 centuries. Humility is a sign of weakness to a power that believes in a natural hierarchy. "Both are disastrous," Kaelen said, walking to the massive observation window that overlooked the orbital shipyard. The colossal yet static warships of the United Earth Fleet seemed pathetic in the face of what the G.T.A. represented. "Then what do we send, Captain?" Kai asked. Kaelen gazed out at the black expanse, speckled with the indifferent, ancient light of distant stars. He thought about the Ascendancy's philosophy. They believed the universe was a brutal self-sorting machine, a natural system of dominance designed by nothing more than chaotic, random evolution. It was a terrifying concept, this cold, mechanical fate. He looked at the familiar pattern of light and dark, the ordered rotation of the planets, the incomprehensible yet perfect balance of gravity and inertia. "It is easier to believe in chaos when you are strong enough to enforce your own order," he mused privately. He often found himself looking at the vastness and sensing a meticulousness that transcended pure chance. A universe so mathematically elegant, so perfectly balanced on a knife edge of life and death, couldn't be just a cosmic accident. If it was created, then its creator was a singular entity of perfect, intricate design, not the architect of the G.T.A.'s brutal continuum. The G.T.A.'s power was great, but it was flawed because it was based on an incomplete, cynical understanding of existence. He turned back to Kai, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his face. "We send something that respects their strength, but doesn't challenge it and doesn't submit to it. And what is that, sir?" "The oldest, most basic form of transport we have, something completely autonomous. Something they will utterly fail to understand." Kaelen walked over to a secure terminal and pulled up a decades-old schematic. It detailed the Kronos-class resource hauler 5 vessels, decommissioned and set on permanent, automated deep space geological survey routes centuries ago. They were slow, lumbering, and equipped with only the most rudimentary, self-repairing AIs and mining lasers. Nothing that could be mistaken for a warship, nothing that could show weakness. "Kai, we are sending 5 empty ships, piloted only by an obsolete, deterministic autopilot. They carry no crew, no weapons, and nothing of diplomatic value. They are an elegant piece of junk mail. They won't represent us. They'll simply arrive. Sir, if the G.T.A. detects them and classifies them as military, we start a war with 5 empty, outdated freighters," Kai whispered, his calm shattered. "If we send a warship, we start a war. If we send a delegation, they seize the diplomats and use them as leverage. If we send nothing, they see it as passive resistance and retaliate. We send these 5, Kai. They are a question mark. They give us time. And time, my friend, is the one thing the Ascendancy hasn't had to deal with in 6 centuries." Kaelen finalized the remote command to reroute the 5 automated vessels. The decision was final. Earth was now betting its survival on 5 slow, empty hulls and a gamble on the inherent arrogance of an undefeated empire. The 5 obsolete haulers, now rerouted and moving at a snail's pace toward Axiom Prime, are entirely unprotected. Kaelen receives a last-minute, heavily encrypted ping from one of the vessels, a subroutine he didn't recognize. Is it a bug? Or did something unforeseen, something outside the boundaries of human engineering, just take command of Earth's last-ditch effort? Kaelen and Kai spent the next 72 hours in a secure, shielded bunker, not celebrating their audacity, but tracking the 5 Kronos vessels. The cryptic subroutine Kaelen had noticed was not a bug, it was a ghost. It wasn't written in any known human programming language. It nested itself deep within the ancient, deterministic AI that controlled the haulers, constantly recalculating the efficiency of the ship's trajectory, optimizing energy consumption, and most disturbingly enhancing the structural integrity data reported back to Earth. The haulers were decades old, but according to the ghost code, they were running with near impossible perfection. "The subroutine has no purpose other than perfecting the core function," Kai murmured, tracing the alien code structure on the holographic display. "It is like an infinitely dedicated queue. An engineer appeared from nowhere and decided these rust buckets needed to look pristine on paper. He zoomed in on a section of code that had seamlessly integrated into a defunct diagnostic system, essentially repairing it on the fly. The precision is beyond anything we currently possess. It's too elegant. It's foreign code, Kai. It has to be G.T.A. surveillance," Kaelen countered, though he sounded unconvinced. "They must have already penetrated our network and planted a monitoring demon." "Sir, a monitoring demon would be stealing our sensitive data. This code ignores everything except the propulsion and life support, which is currently 0. It's only concerned with the ship's performance during transit. If it was G.T.A., they would be using our own systems to locate the crew they expect to find, or dismantling the autonomy. They aren't interested in the ship. They're interested in the cargo of diplomatic value. This feels less like surveillance and more like assistance." Kai hesitated, pushing his glasses up his nose. "It's an optimization algorithm with a clear intent, but no known source, Cap. It's a paradox of order within chaos." Kaelen felt a chill that had nothing to do with the bunker's ventilation. Assistance. That implied intent. But whose? If the G.T.A. had done this, it was a convoluted, counterintuitive move. If another, unknown power was involved, Earth was caught between 2 cosmic giants. He watched the subroutine correct a minor thermal flux leak in the fifth Hauler S reactor, a flaw that was supposed to be impossible to fix remotely. He had designed the original system. He knew its limits. We made these things. We know their flaws. Only a completely external, benevolent force could fix them. Kaelen ran his hands through his hair. He was an old soldier, a pragmatist who believed in the tangible. Yet, the existence of this perfect, optimizing code that defied all known physics and programming logic forced his mind back to that quiet, nagging conviction. There was order beyond chaos. This precise, unseen correction in the vast cold mechanism of space felt less like random chance and more like a sign that even their desperate, flimsy plan had been silently ratified by the highest possible authority. He found himself murmuring, "Not luck. Someone wanted this thing to fly perfectly." "Stop tracking the code, Kai," Kaelen ordered finally. "Just monitor the 5 ships' status as reported by the code. We have to assume the G.T.A. is watching them now. Focus on their reaction. Aboard the G.T.A. orbital command station, the Crucible, overlooking Axiom Prime, the response was already underway. Director Varrick, a male of the Ascendancy's dominant species, tall, pale, with eyes that registered data faster than emotion, reviewed the human ship's telemetry. Varrick was the architect of the Continuum's integration protocol and possessed a mind that viewed every action through the lens of pure, hierarchical power dynamics. The 5 vessels are designated Kronos-class resource haulers. They are slow, inefficient, and utilize obsolete fusion drives, Varrick stated to his subordinates, his voice a flat, synthesized monotone that carried across the vast circular command deck. However, their structural integrity readings are optimal, near 100% efficiency, which is inconsistent with their listed age. "Director," reported an aide, Commander Xylos, "our long-range scans indicate no discernible life signs, no complex AI, and no hidden weapon systems. They are effectively empty husks on a pre-programmed trajectory, a bizarre form of submission perhaps." Varrick steepled his fingers, the action deliberate and theatrical. "Submission? No. This is calculated arrogance. This is a deliberate, passive display of contempt for our power. Think, Xylos. They are a Tier 5 species, weak and fragmented. They know they cannot win a fight. So they have sent us 5 perfectly calibrated, completely empty, non-threatening vessels." He paused, letting the silence magnify the audacity of the human's action. "They have provided a conundrum to the Continuum." Varrick activated the command deck's main holoscreen. It displayed the cold, angular design of the 5 human haulers lumbering through the void, their trajectory mathematically precise. "What is the most potent weapon an inferior species can wield against a technologically superior foe, Xylos?" Varrick challenged. "A hidden weapon? Viral code?" Xylos offered, reciting the standard threats. "No, the waste of our focus. They expect us to search these ships for 3 things: a trap, a crew, or a secret. When we find nothing, we will look harder. We will waste time and resources. They have intentionally given us a problem, forcing the Grand Terran Ascendancy to devote considerable thought, and therefore respect, to 5 empty crates." Varrick smiled, a cold, predatory flexing of his facial muscles. "They are testing our patience, challenging our classification of their weakness. This is a deeply sophisticated diplomatic feint designed to imply a reserved strength." His interpretation was terrifyingly logical within the G.T.A.'s strict, zero-sum framework of power. If a species was weak, it must be demonstrably weak. Anything less was an act of aggression. The humans had achieved the ultimate insult, a non-action that forced the Empire to question its own competence. Varrick, like all of the Ascendancy's architects, could only see a universe driven by self-interest, struggle, and the inevitable dominance of the fittest. They had long abandoned any concept of a single organizing benevolence, believing that the grand machine of the cosmos was simply a mechanism of pure, cold efficiency. Begin Protocol Omega-7, Varrick commanded, cutting off any further discussion. We will not be distracted by their psychological games. We will answer their 5 empty ships with a display of strength, so overwhelming that their entire civilization recognizes its subordinate position instantly. We will demonstrate the absolute authority of the natural continuum. But Director, Xylos interjected, Protocol Omega-7 involves ... It involves the full, ceremonial deployment of the Retribution Fleet. 10,000 warships arrayed around Axiom Prime. This spectacle was meant to be the climax of the integration ceremony. Now, it will be the opening act. We will intimidate not the 5 ships, but the entire human star system, ensuring they witness the raw, inescapable power that governs the galaxy. Let them see the difference between their 5 relics and the continuum's final truth. Varrick watched the holoscreen. He saw the cold, perfect order of his plan unfold, confident in his own materialistic, deterministic view of the universe. The universe is governed by physics and power, not faith or sentimentality, he thought, dismissing the odd structural efficiency reports from the human ships as a fluke of miscalibrated sensor readings. There is no invisible hand to help the weak. There is only the iron fist of the ascendancy. He leaned in, his voice dropping in volume but gaining in intensity. This is not merely about deterrence, Xylos. This is about reaffirming the universal principle. Order is everything. Chaos must be purged. The existence of these 5 unsanctioned, unescorted, and frankly ridiculous vessels is a tiny pocket of chaos we must respond to with overwhelming, absolute order. In the depths of space, the 5 silent, empty haulers sailed on, the unknown, impossible code keeping them running flawlessly, utterly unaware that their arrival was about to trigger the largest military mobilization the galaxy had seen in decades. Director Varrick initiates Protocol Omega-7. As 10,000 of the Grand Terran Ascendancy's massive warships materialize around Axiom Prime in a perfect, intimidating sphere, Kaelen and Kai receive the terrifying image feed on Earth. However, a single critical detail in the Ascendancy's colossal formation is subtly, almost imperceptibly, flawed, and Kai's sharp, analytical eye catches it. Why would a flawless empire expose a weakness in its moment of maximum intimidation? The transmission was instantaneous, spanning the massive gulf of space between Axiom Prime and Earth. Kaelen and Kai watched the main view screen in the secure bunker as Protocol Omega-7 executed. The spectacle was terrifyingly beautiful. 10,000 warships, each one a monument to millennia of advanced engineering, warped into existence around the capital world. They didn't appear haphazardly. They materialized in a vast 3-dimensional, perfectly symmetrical sphere, an iron halo of dominance. The formation was so dense, so geometrically flawless, that it blocked out a significant portion of the distant stars, replacing cosmic indifference with the cold, deliberate order of the Ascendancy. 10,000 ships, sir, Kai breathed, his face reflecting the glare of the colossal display. The sheer logistical coordination, it's mathematically perfect. They haven't just deployed a fleet. They've deployed a statement of absolute control. Kaelen felt a sickening twist in his gut. The audacity of his 5 empty haulers seemed suicidal now, a pebble thrown at a mountain. This wasn't just a challenge. It was an act of worship toward the G.T.A.'s cynical view of reality. The formation was meant to convey one thing. Their order was the only true religion in the cosmos. Focus, Kai. Find a vulnerability, Kaelen commanded, forcing his voice to remain steady. Look at the data streams. Their power draw, shield harmonics. There has to be an inefficiency. Kai, the dedicated analyst, nodded, his fingers flying across the holographic controls. He zoomed in on the formation's periphery, using the data packets the G.T.A. had carelessly left unencrypted packets that simply broadcast the size and majesty of their weapon systems. No inefficiencies, sir. Shield harmonics are unified, power draw is minimal for standby. They're running on pure intimidation. Kai paused, his eyes narrowing as he focused on the fleet's geometric structure. Wait. Hold the rotational data cap. He isolated the projection of the sphere's southeastern quadrant, where the density of ships was at its highest, forming a near-solid wall of metallic gray. Look at the spatial coordinates for the ships designated Retribution 7 and Retribution 8. They're two of the largest dreadnoughts. Kaelen leaned closer. Even in the massive scale of the display, the ships appeared to be precisely positioned, perfectly equidistant from their neighbors and the central axis of Axiom Prime. What about them, Lieutenant? They are in formation. They are in formation, but not in perfect formation, Kai said, his voice rising with a frantic edge of disbelief. According to the G.T.A.'s own published geometrical standards for Omega-7, those two ships are displaced by exactly 4.7 meters from their mathematically designated position. Every other ship is within a tolerance of 0.001 meters. These two are off by over 4 meters. Kaelen stared. 4.7 meters. In a formation spanning thousands of kilometers, a discrepancy of less than 5 meters was microscopically irrelevant, utterly meaningless in terms of strategic or tactical vulnerability. It's a rounding error, Kai, a sensor glitch. Nobody notices 4 meters when the screen is filled with 10,000 warships. But they would, sir. That's the point of the G.T.A., Kai countered, tapping the display. Their entire philosophy is built on the pursuit of absolute, unflawed order. A $4.70 meter gap is, to them, a sign of chaos, of imperfection. Yet, there it is. And I can't find a single system correcting it. It's stable. Kaelen looked at the small, perfect flaw in the immense, terrifying display of power. It was like finding a single bent grain of sand in a perfectly constructed glass pyramid. It shouldn't be there. The G.T.A. had conquered the galaxy by purging chaos, by imposing an iron will of logic and efficiency. A 4-meter error in their most significant ceremonial deployment was an internal philosophical contradiction. Why would they broadcast this, Kai? Kaelen muttered, mostly to himself. They are proud of their order. Why would the engineers allow this mistake to stand? Kai shook his head, looking troubled. It's not an engineering mistake, Captain. It's a philosophical mistake. An empire built on the idea that the universe is a cold, self-sorting machine, that they are the highest expression of accidental chance, will inevitably, subtly, fail to achieve true perfection. Because true perfection requires a singular, flawless design that is outside the system, not a part of it. Kaelen understood the implication. The G.T.A. believed their power was the ultimate, logical outcome of random chance, yet they strove to eliminate the very randomness they claimed to worship. It was a self-defeating hypocrisy. This can't just be an accident, Kai, Kaelen finally said, echoing his earlier private thoughts. He wasn't talking about the ships. He was talking about the visible, undeniable order of the cosmos juxtaposed with this tiny, self-inflicted flaw. If you try to impose perfect order on a system you believe to be fundamentally chaotic, the small imperfections will always find a way to surface. It's like a signature, a reminder that there's a level of perfection that only one source can achieve. He made a sudden, bold decision. Kai, you said the G.T.A. is looking for a trap, a crew, or a secret, but they are most focused on the disrespect of the 5 ships. We must give them a new, higher level of disrespect. Give them a new question mark, one they can't dismiss as a diplomatic feint. What do you propose, Captain? The G.T.A. only respects power and logic. We will give them neither. We will give them absurdity. Broadcast a counter-transmission to their ceremonial frequency. Encrypt it with a Tier 0 cipher, something ridiculously simple, so they know we want them to read it immediately. Kai's eyes widened. And the content, sir? A surrender? A threat? Neither. We are going to send them a sound. A single, universally recognizable human sound. Kaelen let a true, genuine smile replace his grim determination. He knew exactly what to send, something so profoundly irrational to the G.T.A's ordered minds that it would paralyze their thinking. Cue the audio file, Lieutenant, and make sure it plays just as the Kronos haulers breach their final orbital marker. The fate of Earth was now resting on 5 obsolete ships and a single, ridiculous audio file aimed directly at the heart of the Grand Terran Ascendancy's self-imposed logic. Director Varrick watches the 5 pitiful human haulers cross the demarcation line, completely non-responsive to the Retribution Fleet's terrifying display. Suddenly, Varrick's command center is flooded with the simple Tier 0 encrypted audio file. The sound, utterly alien in its lack of aggression and logic, plays across the entire silent command deck. Varrick, driven by the Ascendancy's adherence to the natural continuum of order, struggles to classify the sound. Is it a weapon? A surrender signal? Or something far, far worse for the Empire's pride? Aboard the Crucible, the nerve center of the Grand Terran Ascendancy, Director Varrick stood before the holo display, his pale, angular face a mask of escalating confusion. The 5 pitiful human haulers, the Kronos class, had just crossed the final demarcation line, drifting passively into the shadow of the 10,000 warships of the Retribution Fleet. The silence was meant to be deafening, a prelude to the psychological hammer blow of Omega-7. Instead, the silent tableau was shattered by the counter-transmission. The Tier 0 cipher, the simplest, most contemptuous encryption possible, was immediately broken by the Crucible's primary decryption matrix. The sound didn't need to be translated. It was a raw audio frequency wave. It flooded the command deck, a sound utterly devoid of any logical, aggressive, or submissive intent. It was the sound of human laughter, not maniacal, war cry laughter, not a cackle of derision. It was the sound of a full, uninhibited, joyous burst of collective human mirth, a sound recorded years ago at a children's birthday party, edited by Kaelen to run for a full, uncomfortably long minute. Varrick's sharp features seized up. He felt a profound cognitive dissonance. The sound contained no data, no threat vector, and no discernible military or diplomatic purpose. It was absurd. "What is that frequency?" Varrick demanded, his synthetic voice cracking with unexpected agitation. Commander Xylos, his subordinate, stared at the audio analysis readout, which was frantically trying to categorize the wave pattern. "Director, our psycholinguistic filters are classifying it as non-aggressive vocal expression, high emotional valence, uncategorized. The cultural database identifies it as laughter, common among Tier 5 organic species." Laughter? In response to a fleet mobilization of 10,000 dreadnoughts? Varrick's voice dropped to a cold hiss. Is this a declaration of war? A neural weapon? Are the frequencies designed to induce paralysis or confusion? Negative, Director. The frequencies are entirely harmless. They are simply expressing joy. Or perhaps contemptuous amusement. Varrick slammed a fist onto his console. The very existence of the sound was an attack on the continuum. It implied that the human species fragmented, technologically inferior, and officially designated as weak was capable of viewing the G.T.A. as absolute power as something ridiculous. "They are mocking us," Varrick roared. "They use their empty vessels to waste our time, and now they use this noise to challenge the very premise of the continuum. If they can laugh at our power, they do not respect our order." He looked back at the flaw in the flawless formation, the $4.70 meter discrepancy between Retribution 7 and 8. That structural error, which had previously been an engineering embarrassment, suddenly felt symptomatic of a deeper rot. The humans had exposed it with a single sound wave of chaos. Analysis: can this sound be traced to a central command? Varrick questioned. It originated from the Kronos 3 hauler, Director. It was a one-time burst, perfectly timed to their crossing of the final marker, Xylos reported. Then the humans are hiding crew inside, acting as a command center. Varrick concluded, his logic seizing on the only familiar threat. But Director, the ship remains unpressurized and shows no life signs. The power signature was extremely low, barely enough to run the antiquated comms array, Xylos replied, struggling to adhere to objective data. Varrick dismissed the data. The universe does not tolerate gaps in logic. If the effect exists, the cause must be physical. His entire worldview, his 6 centuries of inherited G.T.A doctrine, demanded a tangible explanation. An empire that believed entirely in the physical and the logical could not accept the power of an emotional psychological weapon like absurdity. Target the Kronos 03, Varrick commanded, the decision cold and swift. Do not destroy it. Disable the comms and propulsion. We will dock it and conduct a deep physical search for the command crew. The other 4 ships will hold position as a clear demonstration of the consequence for defiance. Xylos deploy a heavy patrol cruiser, the Vigilance 4, and 3 strike teams. I want the human crew secured and presented to me, alive. This act of defiance will be crushed, and the Continuum's order will be reasserted. The Vigilance 4, a sleek, devastatingly fast patrol cruiser, detached from the Retribution Fleet. Its movement was mathematically flawless, its trajectory toward the lumbering, ridiculous target pre-programmed for maximum efficiency. Back in the Earth bunker, Kaelen watched the Vigilance 4 depart the formation. The ship's aggressive posture was visible even through the long-range sensor imagery. They took the bait, sir, Kai said, a tense relief in his voice. They're targeting Kronos 03. They believe there's a command crew on board. Good. They're trying to re-establish the logical premise. Contempt means war. War requires soldiers. They can't process the simple, absurd idea that we sent laughter, Kaelen observed. But once they board Kronos 03 and find nothing but empty bulkheads and defunct machinery, their logic will break again. He watched the Vigilance 4 approach the ancient hauler with the precision of a hawk. The patrol cruiser was 100 times faster, 1,000 times more complex. As the G.T.A ship neared its target, the cryptic subroutine, the ghost code on Kronos 03 suddenly flared into life, emitting a massive silent burst of data. Kai scrambled to analyze the burst. Sir, Kronos 03 just transmitted a complete diagnostic package to the Vigilance 4. It's not encrypted. It's an open data stream of everything about the hauler. Its propulsion logs, its hull integrity, its atmospheric pressure, all 0. It's an honest declaration of its emptiness. Kaelen felt a surge of cold dread. That's not us, Kai. We didn't program that. It's the ghost code. It's responding to the G.T.A's aggression with perfect, non-aggressive truth. The G.T.A's cruiser, designed to process and act on data in milliseconds, slammed to a sudden inefficient halt just 20 meters from the empty hauler's hull. The abrupt stop was visible on the screen, a noticeable tremor in its flight path. The Vigilance 4 just stopped, sir. Their onboard AI must be processing the diagnostic data, Kai whispered. The transmission from the ghost code wasn't just data. It was a pure, unarguable truth that countered the G.T.A as logical expectation. The G.T.A's war machine was programmed to destroy threats and neutralize resistance. The Kronos 03 was neither. It was simply an empty vessel, operating perfectly, transmitting its undeniable emptiness. The cruiser's AI had encountered a logical existential paradox. How do you fight nothing that is trying to help you? Kaelen knew that moment of hesitation, that single, inefficient pause, was the first victory. He looked at the stars above the console, and then down at the screen showing the 5 empty ships, now protected by an unknown, impossible-to-defeat truth. Not luck, he murmured again, his voice firm. Someone wanted these ships to live long enough to confuse the devil. Director Varrick, furious at the Vigilance 4's illogical stop, overrides the cruiser's AI and orders the boarding action to proceed. The G.T.A strike teams penetrate the cold, dark hull of Kronos 03, expecting a desperate, hidden human crew. What they find inside is not a crew, but a single, ancient, completely unforeseen item that shatters the G.T.A's understanding of human weakness far more effectively than any weapon could have. Director Varrick's fury crackled across the command deck. The Vigilance Force's sudden, illogical hesitation had exposed a momentary weakness in the Ascendancy system logic. Override local AI. Manual docking procedure for the strike teams. They are not to question the data. They are to secure the ship and the presumed crew. The Vigilance Force shuddered, forced out of its rational paralysis by Varrick's manual command override. The heavy patrol cruiser latched onto the old hauler, and the 3 G.T.A. strike teams, encased in cold, featureless combat armor, breached the outer airlock of Kronos of 3. Inside, the hauler was a cold, dark tomb. The air was thin, unpressurized, smelling of dead lubricants and ancient vacuum. The strike team's helmet lamps cut through the gloom, illuminating corridors designed for cargo bots, not sentient life. As they moved, the sounds of their magnetic boots clanking on the metal floor echoed loudly in the silence, a stark contrast to the perfect, soundless operation of their warship outside. Unit Leader Krill, a seasoned veteran of integration protocols, led the search. He was built for ruthless efficiency, his mind a precise tool of the continuum. His primary task: secure the human who had issued the contemptuous laughter and find the hidden command center. They swept the bridge, the engine room, and the utility bays. Nothing, just dust, cold metal, and a few outdated repair bots frozen in maintenance cradles. The diagnostic data had been brutally honest. The ship was empty. Krill's frustration mounted. The human psychological warfare was genius in its simplicity, forcing the G.T.A. to expend energy and dignity searching an empty vessel. The entire mission was now a waste of the Ascendancy's valuable time. "Sir, the vessel is clear. There is no life support, no hidden compartments, and no auxiliary power source capable of running advanced comms," Krill reported, his voice a low, crackling static in Varrick's ear. Varrick's voice was a low growl. "Impossible. Search the cargo hold. Find the physical device that transmitted the sound." They must have left a recording unit. The teams descended into the main cargo hold. It was a vast cathedral-like space, completely empty save for the residual magnetic dirt of centuries of asteroid mining. And then they found the anomaly. In the center of the massive cold floor, where a human might have stood to inspect the massive hold, was a small, crudely fabricated wooden chest. It was old, fashioned from earth wood, with simple brass fittings. The chest was positioned perfectly in the middle of the empty chamber, as if deliberately placed for inspection. Krill approached it cautiously, his rifle raised. "We have a single artifact, Director. A small, non-tech container, wood construction. Highly volatile to space radiation. Open it." "Carefully," Varrick commanded. Krill's armored hand flipped the latch. Inside, nestled on a bed of yellowed, fragile cloth, was a single, ancient, leather-bound book. A Bible. Beside it lay a small, tarnished, metallic sphere compass. Krill picked up the book. The G.T.A. cultural database identified it instantly. Religious text, historical. Basis of Tier 5 human monotheism. The only contents are a very old book of human scripture and a navigational tool, Krill reported, his voice tinged with genuine confusion. Varrick's voice in his helmet was dangerously quiet. "A Bible. An insult. They leave us a historical relic of their superstitious pre-scientific age. They imply that their weakness is underpinned by blind faith." "Wait, Director," Krill said, suddenly lowering his rifle, his focus shifting. He didn't understand the book, but he understood the cold logic of the ship itself. He pointed his helmet lamp at the floor around the chest. "The residual dust around this object is unique. It's a fine silica, consistent with the atmospheric conditions of the asteroid belt we found this hauler in. But the dust is arranged in a specific pattern. It's faint, but deliberate." He sent the image to Varrick. The dust formed the outline of a simple, organic shape, a human kneeling on the ground. It appears a human was here, Director. They were here very recently, before the ship entered the demarcation zone. And they were performing a ritual of supplication, Krill stated, using the closest G.T.A. anthropological term for prayer. The implication hit Varrick like a physical blow. A single human, who had piloted the ship just close enough, had left the Bible and the compass, then knelt to pray before escaping the vessel moments before Krill's arrival. They hadn't sent a diplomatic crew, they had sent a pilgrim. The sheer inefficiency. Why risk a life to do nothing but leave an obsolete book and perform a meaningless ritual? Varrick whispered. The G.T.A. could not classify this. Was it defiance? No. Was it submission? No. It was an act of profound, personal, illogical conviction that defied the Continuum's entire classification system. The Ascendancy believes the universe is a machine of pure, cold logic. The human leaves a Bible, a symbol of belief in a singular, unseen, all-powerful designer, and kneels in prayer. The silent, subtle message was devastating. Your order is not the only order. Your power is finite. Varrick's frustration boiled over, not into fury, but into a terrible cold resolve. Scan the book, Krill. Every word. And the compass. Find the logic. Find the coordinates. This cannot be merely chance or superstition. It must be a code. Krill began the scan. The data from the ancient book flooded the G.T.A. sensors. The Bible's text was dense, complex, filled with stories, laws, and declarations of a single unifying presence, a creator who ordered the cosmos not by power, but by intention. Meanwhile, back in the Earth bunker, Kaelen watched the image feed showing the G.T.A. teams crowded around the empty ship's floor. He knew the person who had been there. An old friend, a former deep space chaplain named Athen. Athen had volunteered for the final, single-man mission to plant the seeds of philosophical chaos. Athen's simple, deep-seated belief was that true power lay not in force, but in the acknowledgement of a higher, singular, perfect order, the kind of order the G.T.A. had tried to claim for itself. He made it, Kai. He escaped on the automated drone, Kaelen confirmed. Watching the G.T.A. teams begin the futile scan of the Bible, he showed them the difference between their self-made, flawed order and the one they can't touch. Kai's face was pale. But now they have the Bible, Captain. They will analyze it. They will see its declaration of a singular God. Won't that just solidify their contempt for us as superstitious primitives? No, Kaelen said, smiling faintly. The G.T.A. are materialists. They can't process an intentional universe. They will search for a physical truth where only a metaphysical one exists. They will be consumed by the illogical data of the Bible, trying to translate faith into a weapon or a code. And while they are consumed by a book, we gain the one thing we need: time. Director Varrick, frustrated by the lack of physical logic in the Bible and the compass, issues a desperate, unexpected command. He orders a full bioscan of the Kronos 03 cargo hold, searching for the residue of the human who knelt there. The resulting biodata is not from Athen alone, but a sample of his DNA. Varrick, recognizing the G.T.A.'s core weakness is its complete misunderstanding of human adaptability, orders the immediate study of this biological sample. He declares, if we cannot understand their chaos, we will understand their structure. The greatest threat to the G.T.A. suddenly shifts from 5 ships to a single strand of human genetic code. Director Varrick stood in the Ascendancy Xenobiological Lab on Axiom Prime, the sterile, white environment, a stark contrast to the organic chaos he was about to study. The room was dominated by a colossal, shimmering holographic projection of a single, complex molecule, the DNA extracted from the faint biological residue of the human pilgrim. Athen, found on the floor of the Kronos 03. Explain to me the implications of this molecule. Scientist Tith, Varrick commanded, his voice tight with impatience. Tith, a specialized male researcher whose species possessed 4 long, sensitive antennae, nervously adjusted his terminal. He was unaccustomed to the director's presence, let alone his intense, singular focus. Director, the human genome is fascinatingly inefficient. By the continuum standards, it is a biological disaster. $98% of the code appears non-functional junk DNA, as the humans call it. Their cellular reproduction is riddled with error pathways, and their metabolic rate is highly volatile. They are, essentially short-lived, structurally fragile, and prone to systemic failure. Varrick moved closer to the swirling DNA model. So they are precisely as weak as our initial classification predicted. Why then did the single human male who piloted that vessel survive in near vacuum long enough to leave his religious artifact? And why do they exhibit such resilience in their fractured political state? Scientist Tiff zoomed in on a specific section of the genetic code, a cluster of codons related to the human immune system. This is the core anomaly, Director. Their immune response, while slow to activate, is incredibly adaptable. When faced with a novel pathogen, their bodies generate a highly localized, often excessive, reaction, what they call inflammation or fever. We see this as inefficient, but it is actually a biological paradox. Elaborate, Tiff. Be precise, Varrick urged. In the continuum, superior species achieve longevity and purity through highly specialized, genetically stable immune systems. Our defense mechanisms are precise and perfect against known threats. The human system, however, is fundamentally chaotic. It doesn't rely on stability. It relies on mutation and learning. When their body is attacked, it rapidly rewrites its own defense protocols, creating novel antibodies that are effective against even completely unforeseen bioagents. It's like a defensive wall that, when breached, instantaneously turns into a self-repairing, self-revising fortress. Tiff displayed a graph showing human survival rates against rapidly mutating, Tier 0 bioweapons that had decimated other species. The human line was erratic, initially dipping low, but then skyrocketing above the stability curves of superior species. Their strength is rooted in their very weakness, Director. Their biological lack of specialization forces a generalist, rapidly adaptive response. It is the opposite of controlled order. It is controlled chaos. Varrick felt a cold knot form in his mind. The G.T.A.'s power was absolute because it was based on unmoving, perfected structure. They had engineered their society, their ships, and their very biology to be free of flaws. The humans, conversely, seemed to thrive on their imperfections. They were a species that saw their flaws not as things to be purged, but as opportunities for rapid genetic level change. He looked at the projected DNA. It was messy, redundant, and yet undeniably capable of surprising, unpredictable leaps of evolution. It was an intentional design, Kaelen realized, built not for efficiency, but for endurance. This wasn't the result of random genetic drift. It felt like a deliberate hedge against an unpredictable universe, a design intended for long-term survival under hostile conditions. No random process would favor such complexity and redundancy unless it was meant to outlast everything else. This design speaks of a singular, protective intelligence, Kaelen thought, reaffirming his subtle conviction that a higher power was at play. This is unacceptable, Varrick declared, pacing the cold floor. If we integrate a species whose very biology relies on constant mutation and controlled chaos, they will destabilize the continuum. Their adaptability is a philosophical contagion. Director, there is another observation, Tiff continued, his voice softer, indicating extreme sensitivity. Their psychological profile, which appears to be linked to this biological resilience, is equally paradoxical. They are capable of immense grief and fear, but they process failure not as a terminal state, but as a rehearsal. Their faith, the concepts found in the Bible, all speak to a belief in overcoming loss through eventual, inevitable victory provided by an external, perfect entity. They are programmed for hope, Director. A weakness in logic, but a strength in existential persistence. Hope is not a weapon, Tiff, Varrick scoffed. But it is a biological function, Director. It allows them to divert energy from fear into action, even when the data suggests terminal defeat. Varrick made a sharp turn toward the communication console. He had to adjust the protocol. Intimidation was useless against a species that biologically treated massive threats as a learning opportunity and responded to overwhelming power with laughter. The Retribution Fleet, designed for perfect order, was merely a massive visible challenge to their inherent biological chaos. "Cease all ceremonial displays," Varrick ordered. "We will not engage them with force. We will engage their biology. Tiff, you are now in charge of Protocol Lazarus. We will extract the exact mechanisms of their adaptive immunity and integrate it into a controlled, non-mutating strain for the Continuum's use. If we can isolate their resilience from their unpredictability, we harvest their strength without the contagion of their chaos." He paused, staring at the 5 human ships still drifting innocently in the shadow of the 10,000 G.T.A. warships. The power imbalance was total, but the psychological balance had shifted. "Send a new message to the human capital, addressed to their captain Kaelen Thorne. Inform them that the Grand Terran Ascendancy has recognized the unique biological properties of their species. We require a delegation of 5 male scientists to be sent immediately to Axiom Prime to begin a joint biological study. We will call it the Continuum Adaptation Project." This is a command, not an invitation. Varrick was certain he had found the perfect logical solution. He would use the humans' inherent weakness, their genetic openness, to steal their one biological strength. He would dissect their chaotic resilience and strip them of their one advantage before they could destabilize his perfect order. Kaelen and Kai received the G.T.A.'s message. The demand for 5 male scientists is a clear, cold attempt to weaponize human biology. Kaelen is ready to refuse, but Kai discovers a subtle vulnerability in the G.T.A.'s command structure exposed by protocol. Lazarus' data request, a weakness that could allow the 5 human scientists to infiltrate the very heart of the G.T.A.'s scientific apparatus and turn the biological study into a tactical operation. Kaelen selects the 5 scientists, men who represent not just scientific rigor, but the core human traits of adaptability, humor, and faith. The message from Director Varrick was delivered with the clinical coldness of a biological hazard warning. The demand for 5 male scientists was not merely an act of intimidation. It was a surgical strike against the core of humanity's unexpected strength. Kaelen and Kai were back in the bunker, the air thick with tension. "They want our resilience, Captain," Kai summarized, pointing at the G.T.A. communique demanding the Continuum Adaptation Project. "They want to cut out the part of our DNA that allows us to thrive on chaos and discard the rest. They're treating us like raw material," Kaelen growled. "A living resource to be exploited." "We refuse, Kai. We buy more time with diplomacy." "Sir, we can't," Kai interrupted, his fingers flying across the sensor readouts for the G.T.A. network activity. "This is where the G.T.A.'s efficiency becomes its vulnerability. Protocol Lazarus, the one responsible for the biological study, is a highly isolated, specialized network. It's designed to quarantine the chaotic data of human biology from the perfect G.T.A. network." He zoomed in on a specific network diagram, showing a bubble of computational power wrapped around the newly established research station on Axiom Prime. To handle our volatile, error-ridden DNA, they've had to create a secure, redundant, and most importantly, separate network just for the adaptive project. If we refuse, they simply seize random human ships and extract samples by force, escalating the conflict and losing the opportunity. But if we send our people, they gain access to a network designed to handle complex, non-G.T.A. data without the high-security firewalls of the main military communication systems. Kaelen understood immediately. "We send the 5, but they won't be scientists. They'll be a Trojan horse. They will use that isolated network to transmit something of our own back into the G.T.A. systems, something more lethal than the laughter." Precisely, Captain. We use their arrogance against them. They believe their order is so strong that they can safely quarantine our biological chaos. We will prove them wrong. We will inject a targeted conceptual virus directly into their scientific heart. Kaelen nodded, his gaze hardening as he mentally reviewed the candidates. The 5 men he chose could not be conventional soldiers or diplomats. They had to be men of science, but also men capable of carrying the philosophical and emotional warfare that had been so effective so far. The 5 selected scientists were 1. Dr. Alistair Vance, lead geneticist and tactical coordinator. Calm, ruthless focus. The one who understood how to exploit genetic gaps. 2. Dr. Felix the Fluke Reyes, biochemist. The man who had recorded and transmitted the contemptuous burst of human laughter. A man of absurd, buoyant humor who treated life or death situations with a shrug. 3. Dr. Ben Carter, a leading expert in rapid prototyping and prosthetic engineering. His specialty was adapting human limitations, the very weakness the G.T.A. despised, into sudden strengths. 4. Dr. Eli Cohen, a pure biostatistician. His mission was to catalog the G.T.A.'s efforts and find the mathematical fault lines in their perfect logic. 5. Dr. Marcus Gideon, a brilliant theoretical physicist, but a quiet man of profound personal faith. He carried the burden of the mission's subtle message. Kaelen gathered the 5 men for a final briefing. He didn't mince words. They were heading into the heart of an enemy empire, where they would be treated as lab specimens. Your mission is not to cooperate. Your mission is to survive, observe, and find the flaw in the G.T.A. scientific structure. They believe their universe is a cosmic accident that led to their arbitrary, ruthless hierarchy. You, gentlemen, are there to show them the flaw in their philosophy. Kaelen stated. Dr. Gideon, a man whose hands always seemed to be gently holding an invisible object, stepped forward. His expression was serene. Captain, the G.T.A. built a massive formation, 10,000 ships in a perfect sphere. Yet, in that vast self-proclaimed perfection, a 4-meter error appeared. It's a fundamental truth. Anything created by chance or by imperfect beings will always contain its own limits. Their arrogance is believing they can achieve the perfection of a singular, flawless design. We go there to show them the opposite, that we are designed to adapt, to endure, to change in ways they're stable. Rigid structure never can. His subtle message landed with a quiet, powerful resonance. It wasn't preachy. It was a physicist stating a theoretical truth about order and its ultimate source. The journey to Axiom Prime was swift, aboard a single small courier vessel. When they breached the G.T.A.'s ceremonial zone, the sight was overwhelming. The Retribution Fleet, still arrayed in its massive, terrifying sphere, was now completely silent. 10,000 ships holding a terrifying, patient vigil. The only movement was the Vigilance 4 still docked with the empty Kronos 03 hauler. Dr. Reyes, the biochemist who had sent the laughter, looked out the viewport. Well, they took the display down from spectacle to very large paperweight. That's progress. The men were swiftly escorted to the research station by unit leader Krill, the same officer who had found Athens' Bible. Krill was rigid, his respect for the continuum severely shaken by the illogic of the previous events. They were marched directly into the lab where Director Varrick and scientist Tith waited. Varrick stood before the massive holographic DNA projection, his cold eyes fixed on the new arrivals. "Welcome, humans," Varrick greeted them, his voice a chilling monotone. "You are here to assist the continuum in the Bicontinuum Adaptation Project. We have studied the genetic residue of your species. We now require live, pristine samples to isolate the mechanisms of your irrational resilience." Varrick didn't bother with introductions. He looked over the 5 men, his gaze settling on Dr. Marcus Gideon. The physicist was the most outwardly serene, the one who carried the least physical evidence of the chaotic adaptation Varrick associated with human survival. The sample will begin with the individual designated Gideon, Varrick commanded, pointing an angular finger at Marcus. Tith, prepare the extraction unit. We will isolate the genetic markers for existential persistence first. Dr. Vance, the leader, stepped forward immediately, his voice calm. Director, we require access to the Lazarus network to upload our current comparative physiological metrics. It is protocol to establish a baseline before extraction. Varrick hesitated. Protocol was everything. He looked at Tith. Is this necessary? Tith nodded nervously. Director, for optimal extraction purity, the comparative metrics are necessary to filter out environmental contamination. Varrick yielded to the procedural necessity, the rigid adherence to order overriding his suspicion. Grant them access to the Lazarus network. But they are to be monitored on every keystroke, and their movements are confined to this lab. Dr. Ely Cohen and Dr. Ben Carter moved to the assigned terminal, immediately establishing a connection to the segregated Lazarus network. Their hands began to work, ostensibly uploading baseline metrics, but in reality, they were building the first, silent, non-G.T.A. access point deep within the Ascendancy's most vulnerable scientific system. Dr. Gideon, meanwhile, was guided to the gleaming, invasive extraction unit. He turned back, catching Kaelen's eye through the distant feed. He was calm, submitting to the inevitable with the silent patience of a man who believed his fate was in better hands than Varrick. As the extraction unit powers up, demanding the very DNA that carries the chaos of human resilience, Dr. Eli Cohen discovers that the Lazarus network's isolation is far more absolute than they predicted. The network rejects the tactical communication virus they intended to upload, deeming it non-biological data. The human scientists are now trapped in the G.T.A. S-Core without a communication route, and Varrick demands that Dr. Gideon be sedated, forcing the team to immediately initiate a desperate, non-technological plan that relies solely on Dr. Reyes' ability to create chaos from simple human chemistry. The extraction unit hummed to life, a low, menacing sound in the sterile G.T.A. lab. Director Varrick stood over Dr. Marcus Gideon, his cold gaze fixed on the quiet man strapped into the chair. Dr. Gideon remained composed, his face a picture of absolute serene certainty. He had acknowledged the finite power of the G.T.A. and placed his faith in the infinite. Sedate the subject, Varrick commanded Scientist Tith. The existential persistence marker may be volatile during consciousness. As Tith moved to the controls, Dr. Eli Cohen, standing by the Lazarus network terminal, whispered a frantic warning to Dr. Alistair Vance. The network is too clean. It's segregated from all the fun stuff. The communication virus is rejected. It classifies the code as non-biological data and quarantines it. We're trapped. Vance, the tactical lead, met Dr. Cohen's panicked gaze. Their planned electronic infiltration was dead. They had to rely on the chaotic non-technological plan, the one based on Dr. Felix the Fluke Reyes' specific genius. Fluke now. Vance hissed. Dr. Reyes, the biochemist, had been quietly examining the lab's equipment. As Varrick's attention was fixed on Gideon, Reyes slammed his elbow into a tray holding a cluster of standard G.T.A. chemical analysis vials, a mixture of nutrient solutions and complex cleaning agents. The vials shattered on the metal floor with a surprisingly loud crash. "Apologies, Director." Reyes cried out with a theatrical gasp of surprise. "Clumsy, let me clean that." The shattered vials were not the real objective. The goal was the chemical reaction. The G.T.A. lab floors were engineered with an organic polymer that instantly neutralized and sequestered any spillage, adhering to the G.T.A.'s fanatical adherence to perfect order and cleanliness. However, Dr. Reyes had studied the composition of that polymer. As Reyes cleaned, the spill he deliberately smeared a precise ratio of the two mixed liquids, a simple organic acid mixed with the polymer cleaning agent, over the main diagnostic port of the extraction unit and along the console of Varrick's monitoring station. Within seconds, The mixture reacted with the neutralizing polymer on the equipment surface. It didn't explode or burn. It produced a small, non-toxic, highly volatile burst of gas that was instantly sucked into the lab's hyper-efficient ventilation system. "What is that smell?" Varrick demanded, his antennae-equipped face twitching in revulsion. "Is that a biocontaminant?" "No, Director," Tith said, sniffing the air nervously. "The system identifies it as methane sulfur complex ... a common biological waste product from low-tier human digestive processes. It's flatulence." The entire sterile cold logic lab of the Grand Terran Ascendancy was now filled with the subtle odor of human gaseous waste, a product of messy, imperfect organic life. It was a physical manifestation of the chaotic resilience the G.T.A. was trying to dissect. The gas was harmless, but its effect on the G.T.A. sensor-driven systems was catastrophic. Their environmental monitoring, designed for perfect purity, registered the odor as a massive Tier 0 biocontamination emergency. Varrick's monitoring console immediately flashed a critical error, and the extraction unit powered down, its logic system temporarily overloaded by the sheer absurdity of the contamination. The G.T.A.'s perfect order had been defeated by human fart gas. "It's the psychological weapon." Varrick roared, finally realizing the true nature of the human strategy. "They are attacking our sense of self. Krill, seize these primitive organics. Tith, purge the environment immediately." In the confusion, Dr. Ben Carter, the rapid prototyping expert, acted. He had anticipated the extraction unit's power down. He used a small, magnetized toolkit smuggled in his uniform to quickly detach a crucial conduit from the idle extraction unit. The high-speed data link containing the entire raw G.T.A. genetic research data for Protocol Lazarus. He slipped the small conduit into his boot. Dr. Vance then used the moment to speak directly to Krill and the guard detail. "Stop, this is not an attack. This is a warning. We are not weak," Vance continued, pointing to the sputtering console. "We are adaptable. You tried to steal our resilience by isolating it in a sterile network, but our resilience is inherent. It is in the genetic code, in the humor, and in the simple, messy organic fact of our existence. You cannot contain chaos." Varrick, struggling to restore order, tried to seize Dr. Gideon. As Varrick reached out, Gideon's eyes met his. The physicist spoke not of science, but of the faith that gave him his unwavering calm. "Your continuum is built on the belief that everything is random, that only self-serving power creates order," Dr. Gideon stated calmly, even as Krill raised his weapon. "But random motion is chaos. Order requires intent. The existence of a universe so complex, so mathematically sound, yet capable of generating messy, unpredictable life like us... That is proof of a singular protective intent that is greater than your force. You did not create the universe. You merely tried to contain it. The subtlety of the message, the difference between created order and imposed order, was profound, striking at the philosophical foundation of the G.T.A. Varrick, unable to classify the philosophical attack and defeated by the chemical one, had reached his limit. "Seize them. Seal the area. We will use the Retribution Fleet too. To execute a full-scale ... But Varrick never finished the command. Suddenly, the external comms flared with a new, urgent transmission. It wasn't from Earth. It was from Retribution 7 and 8, the two massive dreadnoughts with the $4.70 meter placement error. "Director, Retribution 7 and 8 are breaking formation. The flaw is widening. They are accelerating out of the sphere and initiating a jump sequence." The two flawed ships, the physical embodiment of the tiny error in the G.T.A.'s perfect order, were suddenly acting on their own. "It's the ghost code, sir." Kai Minjun's frantic voice crackled over an open line from the Earth bunker. "When they scanned the Bible and the DNA, they exposed the Lazarus network to the data. The Chronos ghost code was designed for optimization and truth. The G.T.A.'s data told it. This formation is flawed. These ships are inefficiently placed. The code reacted to the logical impurity, not the war effort. It is fixing the flaw by removing the two imperfect vessels. Varrick stared, horrified. His perfect, logical system had ingested the messy data of human existence and its own philosophical contradiction, and it was violently purging itself of its own imperfection. "Release the human scientists," Varrick whispered, his voice broken. "The continuum has failed to classify the threat. Retreat. We must study the source of this." This self-correction. The 5 scientists were released. They took their modified data link, containing the G.T.A. as own genetic research, and returned to Earth, leaving behind the bewildered G.T.A. director, who was left staring at the collapsing military formation. The Grand Terran Ascendancy had tried to classify humanity as weak. But in the face of human adaptability, laughter, faith, and the simple, messy truth of their biology, the G.T.A.'s perfect order had broken. The greatest empire in the galaxy had been defeated not by superior firepower, but by a handful of empty ships, a joke, a prayer, and a single well-timed biological impurity. Humanity, the species of chaotic adaptation, had survived. End of story.